And ladies and gentlemen, we are live coming at you today with another Horror Talks. We got two different people here. We got two different continents in play going on here, but we're going to talk about the same movie. And so I'm joined with my good friend GP Venom over there from across the pond. How you doing today?
I'm very good, sir. Very good.
Good to hear. Good to
Excited
hear.
to be on.
How's the
Excited
weather
to
out
talk
your
about this
direction?
film. It's been fine actually all week. No rain this week for change.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here. Our rain finally dried up too. So, in your honor, I'm actually drinking some Yorkshire tea here. So,
can't beat a bit of Yorkshire tea. I don't live far from York either.
Oh man, so there it is. Hey, William Stibbins already popped in the chat. Welcome to the show. I figured Wayne would be here. He mentioned liking this movie. All right, so we wait for people to drift in a little bit. Today's subject, maybe you can see it behind me, is the 1985 film Return of the Living Dead, directed by Dan O'Bannon and kind of written by him too a little bit. A little backstory here is Dan O'Bannon kind of made his bones in Hollywood with Alien, so he's no stranger to the genre itself.
Yeah, it's actually interesting how this film come about, though. Obviously, Jack Russo worked on Night of the Living Dead with George A. Romero. There was sort of the rights, and they both could go off and do sequels. So this is classed as a sequel to the Night as well as Dawn, like respectively. Out of the two of them, this is the better film.
Oh yeah, I'd say for sure. There's no denying about it. This movie is one of those sometimes underappreciated gems because it works not just as a horror movie. It works not just as a comedy movie. It works as different kinds of genres all together. It just works as a good movie. So,
and
that's where, especially in the zombie genre, it kind of distances itself from a lot of others because a lot of them are pretty poor. You know, if we're honest with ourselves. But this movie's a fun one. Where did you watch this? On Netflix or is it on Amazon Prime? I forget where I watched. I think it was on Prime. I watched it recently.
I watched it. It might have been Prime actually. Yeah,
I think it was. And I think
Netflix.
And then we saw the making of that was on Netflix, right?
The one I watched is actually on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay, good. I don't have Netflix anymore, so
yeah.
Matt coming in hot. Good to see you. Good to see you. Coming up early. He was the man of 5-hour nap yesterday, missing my show completely. It shows you how long our live streams are. All right, and the effects. There was some great effects in that movie.
Really good effects, I thought, especially with the half corpse.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Really well.
A lot of attention to detail, and he didn't do this on a big, huge budget either. So. There was definitely
it was a $4 million budget.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what it got made for. Yeah.
So it was
actually one of the effects guys called Tony Garner who did the half corpse.
That's right, and they fired the first guy because it wasn't coming out the way they wanted it. Poor guy.
If you've seen some of the stuff he'd done, you'd understand why they fired him.
Yeah. It didn't look good, but I think he went on to have a decent career in other movies, but it wasn't good there.
No, that's all right.
But so we're going to talk about different aspects of this movie, why we think it's great, and why we think if you've never seen this somehow, you should watch it. And my first memory of this movie, of course, is the VHS cover. It was always like prominently displayed in the horror section of a local video store, right? Either the grocery store. It was even the grocery store. They used to have a little VHS section. I don't know about it in England, but they used to over here in the States. You always had like a little video section.
Yeah, we had VHS sections. Yeah.
Did you? So cover itself is just you can't deny it. Everyone knows that cover. It's a pretty amazing thing. It really makes you want to watch. But it's also like and it reaches out to you like the young crowd too. Because hey, look, they got mohawks, they got colored hair. You know, so it's like. It wasn't just for like the middle-aged horror fan. They knew the demographic they wanted to go for. Hey, Russ, what's going on? And hopefully no one's hearing any echo. I'm hearing it a little bit, so let me know in the chat if you're hearing it, but I'm going to kind of soldier through it. Let's see. Russ is on. Good to see you. Good to see you. Took a break from live streaming, I see. James Gallegos in the house, as always. Good to see you. Good to see you. So man, we got a nice little crew coming in here early semi-early for stateside over here. Let's see, was it 4 o'clock over there for you?
Just after 4, yeah.
Well, good. James liked this movie too. So I'll tell you, man, this is one of those. Yeah, I'm getting that very faint echo too, man. I don't know if I should drop the stream and reboot my computer or what. I don't know what's causing it.
I cannot hear it. I really cannot hear it.
I don't know. Do you have your speaker on over there or something?
No. I've just got my headphones plugged in.
Strange. Well, if you think I should reboot this stream chat, let me know. But if not, we'll keep soldiering on here. Let's see what the chat's going on here. Yeah. Zombie movies, we're getting a little off subject here, but there's like this whole societal breakdown that people kind of semi-crave for, I think, internally. They don't even realize they do. Because then it's the Wild West all over again, So it's like a reset on society, and people can, engage in their most base activities and desires for a while, until things sort themselves back out. But that's probably part of it,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he can see it. All right, so you can deal with it. So sorry on people on the replay. I don't feel like rebooting the computer for the stream, but we'll get right into it. So amazing movie, 1985, catchy VHS cover artwork. I don't remember this movie making a ton of money in the theaters, but that was kind of par for the course for horror movies back then.
I looked at it, was about 14 million, just over 14 million.
So actually did all right, so 10 million over.
Really, yeah.
Like, because the Friday the 13th movies all made a pretty good profit for their producers and distributors.
Yeah.
So this one kind of came out of the blue.
When talks of Canon about releasing the film, I think things dropped off with horror films at the time, being early 80s, and they were like, no, push it forward, because they're forgetting it's going to take like a good while for the movie to come out anyway. So horror might pick up back then, and people will be back into it. And they played it out right, and they brought it out in 1985, and where 80s horror was really going for it.
Yeah, and so like movies like this help bring things back into the fold, make the zombies, genre popular again. Because really, it had been a long time since Dawn of the Dead, 78 or 9, I think that movie was, and here we are, 85. And then suddenly after this one, there's like a slew of zombie movies come back out again. Like, hey, there's money to be made again. And of course, everyone knows the Renaissance in the 2000s. But this one was different. This movie went its own damn way, as my drill sergeant used to say, and kind of rewrote some rules and created some new rules too for the genre.
I think they set the benchmark for zombie films. Really, it comes up with a lot of tropes now that you get in zombie films. The lead brains. This is actually the first film where zombies actually run. The plan, like apex predators in this movie. So everybody credits 28 Days with the first running zombie.
Nope.
No, it was this film.
Yep. I remember when I first saw it, I was freaked out, because here's the other thing too, is you go into this movie, you just seen like the Romero ones or the old, 40s zombie movies, and they're all shambling corpses, they're really slow. They're not intelligent. And all of a sudden you get this film and it turns everything on its head. Now these guys are Olympic sprinters, they're just as intelligent as when they died.
That's right.
And they can't really kill them. That was the other huge thing too. But yeah, you're right. It introduced a lot of new things, and I think for the better, because just me personally, the running zombie is 10 times scarier than the shambling walking zombie. And these guys especially were serious bullet sponges. So it adds a lot of tension, when you got something that's like so maniacally like bent on killing you and can run just as fast as you can and never doesn't get tired and doesn't worry about pain. And of course, Tarman, who can forget trash. Those two are some spectacular stuff. It was funny because they had to go find a really skinny guy to play Tarman to get him into the suit to look kind of normal and emaciated. So I think the actor played like 120 or 140 pounds. So he was really light. I'm sorry, I don't have my kilo translator here for you, but
I can't work it out right now.
That would be like 10 stone. I think we were going through stone last night.
Yeah.
It says 14 stones to a pound. Yeah, I don't know. Or 14 pounds to a stone. Whatever the heck that is, man. Fast zombies. Yeah, eating brains. So it adds a new trope. Now, not all movies follow that. I'd say more of them lean towards more of the Romero tropes. But a lot more zombies in, like, say, the 2000 plus went toward the fast zombie. And so I think they took the parts that worked really best and incorporated them into modern day zombies. And I know the TV show Z Nation started turning into the zombies into more like the zombies from this movie because they were basically indestructible.
I haven't seen that yet. Right.
You got to turn your brain off, and it's really kind of wonky. But my wife and I watched the first couple seasons of it, and but yeah, they started turning the zombies into these zombies, much more indestructible.
Right.
And like I said, it adds another layer of tension because let's be honest, I'm not a big fan of Walking Dead or whatever, or shows like that, or even the Romero ones. If they're just walking around, plotting around, there's no, a guy with a gun could take out a whole, squad of them in no time. But it's a lot harder to hit something
around them.
But yeah, exactly. But it's a lot harder when they're barreling at you, like Usain Bolt, on crack.
Exactly.
So. Yep. And they talk. That's another thing. This is they retain their intelligence, and so completely new. I remember I saw this movie. I think I saw this movie back in the 80s, and don't really remember it as a kid. And I watched it again fairly recently, and I was just amazed. It was like all new to me almost, and it's like I don't remember them doing that, but it's like you don't expect any of that because once again, you are so conditioned to expect the old Romero style zombies and lore type zombies that. All of a sudden, they're on the radio calling in for more paramedics and send more cops because they want to eat more, right? And that, like I said, they're hauling butt. And then I think, we'll probably get into that in a bit, but let's talk about a couple different things in the movie before I go geeking out too hard on this. There's a throwback to Geeky Pete, right? 20 pounds is 54 kilos. Yeah, I know. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah, see, the running zombies, I don't think humans would have a chance,
Yeah. No, definitely not.
It's hard to hit a moving target. Going out to the target range, try it sometime. It's not as easy as people think it is. They're all Annie Oakley in the movies, but it ain't like that in real life. So,
no.
And usually the only chance people have against zombies, even the slow ones, is that they're not intelligent. They're basically mindless, so you can outthink them. But in these, guess what?
I mean, they're intelligent.
They're basically like junkies, though. That's one thing that kind of helps the humans a little bit. Is while they can do planning to get real desperate for brains. So let's start out with what we talked about a little bit. Let's talk about the effects in this movie just a bit. And I know you said you're a big fan of the effects in this movie, correct?
I really am, yeah. I think they did an amazing job with the effects. Right from the beginning, when everything starts coming to life, you have the yellow cadaver man.
Mm-hmm.
He comes hurtling out the door, and then the stick through his head and saw his head off. You got the half dog just moving about, and the butterflies on the board. I said all we did was just use a hairdryer on them to get them to move. It's just simple but effective. It really is.
Yeah, there's
when Trash becomes a zombie, and like I said, I was just watching that documentary just to get have a jaw that was like a full prosthetic over the face. And it was really well done. I would say, and like I mentioned before, the half corpse and Tarman, really well done costumes and effects.
I'll say this for especially horror movies in particular and movies in general. I find it usually better for special effects when they have a more limited budget because I think it forces them to get creative, you know what I mean? And it forces them to do things more practically as well, too. But there are, like you said, the whole reanimation scene in the warehouse when just like little things are happening in the background, like I said, the half doggy was just start barking again. It was so funny. It just showed how pervasive this thing was too. It also showed how like this virus is a lot less benign than the ones we're used to seeing, right? It's everywhere. It's in the air now. So it's like, oh boy. But I remember when I first saw this movie and he puts a pickaxe in his head and everyone thinks that's it. Well, he's done. He's a zombie, right? And all of a sudden he's still flopping around down there, but he's all yellow painted and all. But lots of really good prosthetic work, like you were saying. Hey, Jay, what's going on? Welcome to the chat. Good to see you.
Hey, man.
It's been forever. I don't remember last time I saw you. Let's see. Must have been about 12 hours ago. Not even 12 hours ago. But yeah, there's a lot of good. Now, this is not an excessively gory movie. So it's like not Splatterfest, which is fine. Who cares?
It does have its moments, but
it does.
Yeah, it's not like over on the go. Yeah.
But they do some of those amazing like puppeteering work is later on in the movie when you see the half zombie. We mentioned her earlier.
Yeah.
And she's still talking. She's a withered, emaciated, torn in half corpse who's still leaking spinal fluid all over the table. but there she is in all her glory with her big blue eyes. Amazing work. Once again, this movie didn't have a budget really. And they get that done. So I think,
and I like the bit. I like the bit of the half corpse because it also gives you the explanation for why they have to eat brains, like you said before, because it's like crackheads. It's like a drug to them, stops them feeling pain. And I thought that was a really good idea that they put into the movie to have that explanation.
It works so well because we're so used to, once again, seeing the zombies as not people, even though they're still people. Well, they were people once, right? But there's something different now.
Yeah.
In this movie, it really hammers home the fact that they were people, and guess what? They still are. They're just raised from the dead, and now apparently they're in agony. They're in torment because they're dead. They can feel their own bodies rotting away. So they're not really bad, and they're not out there eating flesh because they want to. They just want to stop the terrible pain that's going on within them. So they have to eat brains. Apparently, that's where it goes away, is if they eat brains. So just really so creative, and once again makes you empathize a little bit. The best horror movies make you empathize somewhat with the monster, especially the innocent monster type. Frankenstein and even Dracula is kind of a sympathetic character at the end, So they add this little facet to the movie. So all kinds of new stuff going on here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we talked about visuals, but let's talk about the sounds a little bit. There's some 80s goodness to be had here, isn't there?
Yeah. Especially if you like punk.
Yep. What a banging soundtrack.
You know what? The soundtrack just marries well with the film. It's that style of film. There's punks in it, so you're gonna have to have punk music.
And it's funny that
I think it works really well.
It's funny too. Once again, I think at this point, punk had kind of phased out, and we moved on to more synth pop and stadium rock more again. So, like a lot of Hollywood. Of course, this movie was made, I think, a year or two before it was actually released. So, so they're always just a little bit behind the trends back then. But so I think they're definitely going for the youth market, because the other half of this movie's like main groups here are all young people. They're all young punk kids, right? Yeah. And so that soundtrack like lines up perfectly with them. Let's see. Always
definitely.
Oh, I think he's making a play on words of how I'm talking. So, but that's what I do. Green screen. I can take it off if you like. But so there's a lot of great music and soundtrack in this, and I guess that kind of ties into probably the most famous scene in the movie with Trash doing her graveyard dance, and the song you hear on screen though is not the same one that she was dancing to. So just for
it wasn't. No. Yeah.
But it's funny how that song just builds up as she goes walking up there. It's just, I don't know, so many perfect musical cues in this movie, and very interesting scene.
I think they use the same. I think they use the same song for Resurrection scene as well.
I think so, because it was
like
tying with her
version. Yeah.
It's funny, she died the same way she wanted to go out, right? Being torn apart by old men. So
yeah.
Classic scene. Poor Linnea Quigley. Scream Queen of the Stars. And what's funny is I don't think she was originally slated for that role. Dana Bannon actually picked out a real stripper.
Apparently the first person they had for that role, she was pregnant and she got too big to do it. Can you excuse me a minute?
Sure.
Just 2 seconds.
Take your time. I'll try to entertain folks, but it was interesting because the one of the original actresses that Dana Bannon had for this film was actually found in a strip bar, and she didn't want to do the nude scenes. So Linnea Quigley, of course, stepped in, as a good soldier that she is, and picked up the slack and gave us the famous dance. And it was kind of funny because the actress that she replaced,
sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Seemed kind of petty about it, in the end. It's like, well, she had an okay body or whatever. It was like, that dance scene is iconic. And I don't think the lady that she replaced could have improved on it any.
Definitely not. No.
She was too clean after her death. Yeah, she. Well, it is. It is what it is. They didn't take a lot of chunks out of her, did they? She looked more like a specter than she did a zombie. But hey, it is what it is. There's also a lot more into that dance scene I probably won't get into in this video, but prosthetics were involved.
Yeah,
and
they were.
And it was kind of harrowing. I do feel sorry for Linnea Quigley on that one, because it sounded like she went through a hard time. It's used to what she was being nude on screen. It wasn't easy for that film. So,
But she's, you know, she jumped into the part and she went with it, and
she's a pro.
Brilliant.
She's a pro,
Yeah.
and she's still doing the convention circuit to this day. So apparently she likes it, or at least she makes good money on it. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone might remember Lena Quiga from like Night of the Demons and several other, was it Sorority House Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama? She was in that one.
Did she do Black Christmas as well?
Was she in Black Christmas?
Or was it not Black Christmas? The other Christmas one.
I think I was a little before her time. Oh, Silent Night?
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking the VHS cover with the Santa arm hanging out.
That's right. Yeah.
I always remember the VHS one. Yep. Right there with Gremlins, right?
Yeah.
And she also had a very, very, very tiny role in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, actually. Most people don't know this. At the very end, when when the souls are pushing themselves out of Freddy, she's the naked girl who pushes herself out of Freddy. So that's Linnea Quigley. So deep cut there for you guys. But
there you go. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, see, for those horror fans out there. So yeah, we've established this movie. It looks good. It sounds good. It's got a really cool premise. Now let's talk about some of the acting in this movie, because really, other than the older leads, this is a bunch of no names, right? At the time. They did class up the joint a little bit with Clu Gallagher, of course, playing Bert, and James Karen playing Frank. Those are probably the only two guys that had any recognition, and mostly those are from the old Western days, like the 50s and 60s in this movie.
Clu come on right at the last minute. So all these other guys have been rehearsing for weeks and everything. And I think they had someone else in mind for Clu's role. And brought him in right at the last minute. So for him not to gel for the longest time as the others, he did seem like to throw him all self in there and be a part of like the cast.
His
if you know what I mean,
yeah, it worked for his role because he was in like the supervisor position, the upper, or maybe the owner of the factory. I don't know if he was the owner of the warehouse or the big boss or whatever, but
I think he was the owner. Yeah.
So it seemed kind of like you could be a little more aloof from the others and maybe a little more detached from them, at least the two mains, right? So it kind of made sense. They worked that well. You always wonder who pressed. Yeah, see, I mean, you can now sleep easily at night because you know whose cans those were coming through that latex, and they were great. And it was funny because my favorite scene in the entire movie is like the very opening scene when they're in the warehouse. Most people don't realize how long a shot that is. It's like 5 or 6 straight minutes. And I don't know if they're improvising a lot of it, but they're moving around the warehouse. They're conversing back and forth, moving things around. It's very complex to keep all that going with no hiccups for anyone who's ever done anything in film before. So I love that shot, man. And it has nothing to do with zombies.
My favorite scene of the movie is actually it is a zombie scene. It's when one of them's crawling out the dirt. We call him the anthill zombie, and you just see him clambering up through the dirt. And I think that's a brilliant shot because you don't really get to see them coming out the ground that way. You just normally it's there in the graveyard, and whoop, hand comes out, and that's it. The zombie's there. So to see one like actually climbing up through the dirt, I thought they pulled that off absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, it once again reinforces these are the rising dead, right? Because if you just see them walking around out of the morgue, or whatever, it doesn't have the same impact. It's like, oh, they're raising from the grave. And so, if it gets you thinking too, is like if this rain spreads everywhere and spreads this chemical everywhere, there's dead bodies everywhere. So there'll be hordes there's a lot more dead than alive on this planet eventually,
Yeah.
So great stuff there, and just some. I don't know. This movie is so brilliant in that it bounces around from horror to comedy to kind of like hardcore drama in a couple of spots, Yeah. Who doesn't tear up a little bit when Frank puts himself in the crematorium, man? I mean, it's hard to watch, kind of.
That actually was an improv scene as well. Yeah, I think he said it went over to Dan. He goes, you know what? I don't want to be stood outside with the other zombies. I want them to have a better death. So yeah, then they come up with that idea. That's why they put it in an earlier scene when they're looking at the incinerator. He says, "I can run that." You know what I mean?
Establishing shot.
So it's good how they worked it all. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So yeah, they give you. They get you attached a little more to these characters, and you spend a lot more time with most of them than you do in most horror movies, which is nice. Even the punks, you get a lot of time with them. So, so they all have their individual face, And so you get a little more invested in him as an audience to care about what happens to him. You don't just want to see him butchered. And when they all start barricading themselves into the funeral home, it starts to get kind of tense, because there's not so many remaining, and the hordes are at the windows and at the doors, and they're just coming in everywhere. It's like, how are these guys going to survive the night? You can't even kill these zombies. So it's a great way to build tension. But there's a lot of comedy too in this movie. So we could go on for days talking about how funny this movie is at times. But it was a great addition. I think it was a great.
I think it can get a bit hammy, some of the acting in it, and I think that play up that hamminess quite well. I say one of my biggest problems with the film, and it's nothing major. It is actually Freddie and Frank when they're always hollowing and hollowing. Don't have to be so loud.
It's like you're not doing a play in the park. You're mic'd. You don't need to.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Honestly, that's the only bad bit about the film is when they went a bit over the top.
Apparently, they were a lot of pain. Acting. I like one of my favorite scenes. It's kind of funny and sort of dramatic at the same time. Is when the paramedics come in and they're kind of doing all their testing on the guys, and they're like, "What's the body temperature?" And they're like, "That can't be right. What body temperature are you getting?" It's like 70.1 or something. Like 70.1.
Room temperature.
It's room temperature. Brilliant little scene there, man. It's like that just shows you that's what a dead body does when metabolism starts running. Let me just check the chat over here, make sure I got everything going. Yep. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant, but lots of just funny stuff, man. And then you got of course the zombies ordering more paramedics and more cops. That's always good for a chuckle too.
Paramedics.
Just brilliant, man.
They do the cops one in the sequel. They do the paramedics in this one, and then the cops in the sequel. So I like how they carried that on.
I think it was a fan favorite. So. And some of the punks are pretty funny too. I mean, those guys are a hoot too. Got the super serious leader of everybody, and or was it Scuzz? What's his name? I think.
Yeah.
Was the big, huge guy?
Yeah.
And
he
then,
actually died 10 years after the film.
Yeah, it wasn't that long after this movie. Unfortunately for him.
And he played Vic in Friday the 13th, Part 4.
Vic. Which one was Vic?
He's the one who killed Joey.
Oh, you mean 5?
He's outside shot. Is it 5? Sorry,
yeah, 5. Okay, I was like Vic. Yeah, but he's the guy with the axe that was cutting the wood outside in 5. Yeah, and over a chocolate bar.
Yeah, and Spider, who was also in that film. He was in Part 5 as well.
Yep, he was a damn enchiladas scene. Miguel Nunez.
Yes,
everyone knows that scene, so it's like memed to eternity on horror sites. It's amazing. So yeah, man, we got some comedy etched in there to kind of break things up, but it's not like MCU comedy. I think it's more.
No,
it doesn't feel as planned. It feels a little more organic. You know what I mean? They're not just throwing out one-liners.
Yeah.
It's usually the situations that wind up being a little bit humorous. I mean, because it's even funny watching poor Tom Matthews blinded, just destroying the place looking for her. It's funny in a horrifying way. Poor guy. So Tom Matthews is also kind of famous to horror alums because not only this movie, but Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. And I think he carries off the role pretty well for a guy who didn't have a lot of experience in movies.
Yeah, he did well. Yeah. See, that's the thing when we go back to the comedy and then we'll talk about Freddie and Frank. I think them two, obviously mentioned the hammy acting got me a bit, but they did play off well off each other, and the comedy aspect of that went well. I mean, I think there was a bit with the yellow corpse, and when Clue says, "Oh, get us a bone saw," the both were supposed to turn around to each other and say, "Bone saw." No, and them two both come up with that. So yeah,
the kind of another interesting facet of it was that back then they had modern audience might see the way Tom Matthews was doing everything the supervisor said, and supervisors were doing everything the owner said, even when they were sick and it felt like they were dying. They knew something was wrong. It was that's kind of how people saw work back then. It's even when you're off duty, like your boss was still kind of controlling you somewhat. It was kind of interesting. And now they're like, well, I would have told him to piss off and got in the hospital, but it's like he's like the first day employee, so he's gonna do everything the supervisor tells him because he needs this job. So there's like a little tidbit of that in the movie that I think a lot more modern audiences would find kind of humorous, because people will say, well, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have stayed there. I would have kept going. Oh, Suicide. Thank you. Why I couldn't think of that. Fiverr's Revenge. I haven't seen it forever. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, man.
Suicide. That's what I remember. And it's like, I remember him like, you think this is just a costume? This is a way of life, you know?
Yeah, do you know what? He's the first one to get killed. And
I know.
Seemed to be the most interested out of a lot of them. Even when Trash is going up against him, that he goes, have some respect for the dead, you know? He's like...
No, he's a complex character.
So when you first watch it, you think, yeah. And it doesn't get explored because it gets taken out pretty relatively early by Tarman.
By Tarman, yes, and the famous basement scene down there.
Yeah.
And Tarman, man, what a performance! I could imagine trying to move like that. You know, it's like a cross between a marionette and a mountain gorilla. You know.
Yeah.
He's supposed to have any joints anymore, like, and so he's all loose and goosey. You got to pretend you have nothing holding on your but your flesh, with your arms and stuff. But just a great performance, man. I bet it was miserable in that outfit.
Yeah, it works really well. Works really well for the film.
Mark Venturi, yeah, that was his name. I forgot about that. So yeah, I already put that up there. So some great like physical performances too, and let's not forget Don Calfa as the supposedly ex-Nazi Ernie, the mortician, who had to dye his hair blonde for this role. He
was named after a Nazi SS officer, and he didn't know that was the thing. And somebody told him, he goes, "You what?"
I don't know what they were going for with that little miniature backstory, because who's going to pick up on any of that watching the movie? You know, I don't think anyone ever did until like the filmmakers themselves said that's what they inserted in there. I guess it's like a little picture, whatever, in the mortuary area, and he had like an old German pistol or something was his pistol. But
yeah, that's right.
I just see a guy in a jumpsuit being a mortician, but whatever the case may be, he had a great little role, and he had a nice fitting ending actually. Kind of, once again, more the dramatic, serious side. You know, you feel kind of bad for him.
Yeah, that was really well put. He was ready to put one in the back of the head just to save the pain from turning into one of them. So
now, I think
the way they played that out was really good.
Yeah, they didn't rush it. The only thing I would have done differently, if I would probably hid up there a long time before all that, before they broke in and just pulled the ladder up. Maybe they would never have found you, but yeah, it is what it is. And then we got to wonder if they shoot themselves in the head, is they going to do anything? You know, because are these going to res anyway? Because obviously that doesn't do anything. So does it work if they die in the real world before they're zombies? I don't know. And do they stay dead?
Who knows? Who knows?
So more brains. Yeah, very famous lines.
More brains.
Poor Tarman. Soon not to be proud of that. So there's a lot of memorable zombies in this movie too. Like I said, you got the trash resurrected zombie, you got the yellow jaundice zombie from the cooler, you got of course Tarman, you got the half zombie on the table. So a lot of memorable stuff there, and we're left over with an interesting ending, to say the least. It also leaves itself open for plenty more sequels, which we did get some. But it was cool, man. It was a really nihilistic look at things. For the lighthearted feel a lot of this movie had was kind of serious subject matter at the end. It's like, we're going to basically nuke an entire town because it's out of control. And so there it was. Did you see that coming?
Wow. I don't know. It's just one of the things in it, because obviously they played with the military through the film, trying to find the trioxide. And I didn't think they would nuke it, to tell you the truth. But when all else fails, what else are they going to do? Yeah.
It's kind of like...
but that has repercussions because it set all the rain again to fall. So
exactly. Now, which they didn't know that. That's how it spread. But yeah. So once again, that just leaves things way open. Even the last shot of the movie is like the rain clouds, whatever, carrying the stuff to another place. So... And I wonder if Resident Evil 3 stole their ending from this movie, because it was really similar, actually, to that, with nuking the small city and all that. Very interesting. But yeah, so as an element, just when you think a couple of your people are going to survive, like Chloe Gallagher and Nunez, and I think it was 3 or 4 people who survived at the end. But guess what? They didn't survive. Spoiler alerts, everybody. Don't watch. I should have said that about the beginning. So it's kind of a real pessimistic. It's kind of a dour ending, you know, if you think about it, but it just works for the movie.
Yeah.
And we kind of thought maybe that was something they were planning, but I didn't know if they'd actually do it, you know. But
yeah.
And nowadays it'd be an easy decision makes everyone would be videoing with their phone. You could see what was going on, but they didn't really have any intel except for the people on the phone, you know, saying, well, there's zombies in the streets, but I guess the people in charge knew it was going to be so bad they had no choice. So movie doesn't end on a happy note, as a lot of horror movies tended to do, you know. So, okay, so we got a nice little mixture of horror and comedy in there. Some of the characters are super memorable. The soundtrack is there. The look of the movie is pretty good. Let's just talk about the overall package. Like, if you were to like rank this, like say on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as horror movies and zombie movies go, where do you think you'd put this?
I'll put it in an 8.
8?
Yeah.
Yep.
An 8. Solid 8.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, this is not a perfect movie. There's no such thing as a perfect movie. So there's a few things that could be changed to make it a little bit better. But for the most part, I really agree with that ranking, at least 8 or 9, somewhere in that area, because it's just so influential. It's such a fun movie. This is the kind of movies, like, especially zombie movies. Once again, I hate to keep picking on zombie movies. A lot of those are one and done. You watch them once and you never watch them again.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's guys tearing people apart and eating flesh, and there's nothing there. But this one, man, you can watch, pick up some more nuances from performances, or you might pick up a little detail you missed for the first time. And it's done in such a fun way, and it moves along such a brisk pace that it's really kind of a joy to watch, you know, at least for me.
I think it ages well. It's aged well, sorry. Like me and you were talking about, both watched about 2 months ago again. And yeah, I could just shove it on again and watch it. Because it's one of them films where you can just lay back and enjoy it, and there's nothing like over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I also think that this would be a movie you could probably show to someone who wasn't as big a horror fan, and I think they would enjoy it too, more than a dedicated zombie movie. You know what I mean? That's nothing but blood and guts. This movie has a little more to offer, because you can probably make the typical moviegoer chuckle, you know, which would be a cool thing. It's difficult for a movie like that. Not too many movies did that well, like horror and comedy mix. American Werewolf in London is probably the best example of it. Done well. This one's right up there with it as well.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the set was a crazy place, though. It sounds like there was like physical confrontations going on and rain-soaked sets.
Yeah, apparently there was,
Oh,
apparently Clue and Dan O'Bannon didn't get on at all.
So I mean, apparently there's fisticuffs involved.
Yeah.
Can you picture
Clue chasing Dan O'Bannon with a stick?
I mean, it's crazy. He must have been completely insane, but he was actually in another. He had like a renaissance in horror movies back then. It was weird because he fallen out of movie and TVs, and all of a sudden he's in like this movie. He's in Freddy's Revenge. He's in Nightmare on Elm Street 2 as the father. And so he was in several different things in the 80s as horror. And Derek, we have some horror royalty in the chat today, by the way. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you.
Hello. Hello.
This movie, and it's funny, I like how he says this too. It's his favorite zombie movie of all time and one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So it just works on a lot of different levels. It's not just a zombie flick. In fact, this movie would work well if we didn't have a zombie genre, you know? Yeah, well, we had to suspend some disbelief on some of these corpses, you know? Like, for instance, most of them have eyes. It's like, why would they have eyes? That's the first thing to go, basically, in your body. So, yeah, a lot of that wouldn't work. The tendon moving around in the flesh, or the muscles to power those said tendons, it just doesn't work. So, yeah, we have to suspend some disbelief. But we have things, maybe some biochemical things go on that make the laws of physics irrelevant in these movies. The toxin does all these things. That was another interesting thing, is how they actually had the contagion released and why the stuff was there. You know, they blamed the military snafu. So there's this gigantic cauldron of chemical badness sitting down in this friggin' warehouse that no one had bothered calling the military.
I think that was the big overall message of the film, is how the military screws up. They lost the containers, then nuked the town, which released it again.
And made things worse.
So, yeah.
So there's some underlying messages there. I don't know, but if they are, they're not too well hidden.
Definitely not.
Yeah, this I'm waiting for this thing to come over here in the chat because the chat's so much faster on YouTube. But Derek brings up a good point too. He's like, you can't just headshot these things and kill them. These things are like impossible to kill. You got to put them in little pieces and burn them, or at least, and that doesn't kill. It just makes more eventually. But and you have to wonder, like, are those ashes still alive? It makes you think about that too. It's like nothing else seems to kill them. Yeah, so these zombies are actually intimidating. They're kind of scary when they're running around in gigantic hordes. And shooting them is not going to do anything. It's not going to slow them down.
So yeah, not these ones.
Nope. So they did a lot of really good stuff with this movie and really broke the mold on the zombie genre and breathed some light, fresh air. For those of you who watched my review on the George Romero Dead series, knows I was pretty harsh on some of those movies. I don't cut them the slack that most people do, and I don't think they're as classic and amazing other than Day of the Dead as most people make them out to be. I think a lot of them are just middling at best, and some of them I think were pretty poor. Like I myself was not a fan of Dawn of the Dead, the original, and most people love that movie.
No.
So
I tell people to watch the remake.
I prefer the remake a lot more.
Watch the remake. Yeah.
I mean, Night of the Living Dead was okay. I put that kind of middle of the road as a because it had a good atmosphere, and he really did that with no budget.
Time it was made, you know, it was well made.
So, and I love Day of the Dead because that was a character-driven story and really good effects and lots of good stuff. And I thought Land of the Dead was atrocious. I wasn't a big fan of that movie. So,
I watched that once and then didn't carry on.
I saw it in the theater. I was quite disappointed.
Oh,
who knows how they controlled that? If they ever did control it, I don't know how they ever got him put away into that container. And it's funny too in this movie they kind of make references to like
that's a question.
Yep. How did they stop him long enough to? And he was like a suspended animation too, so that was really strange how all that came to be. But whatever, you know, it is what it is.
It is.
So who knows how they controlled it with a flamethrower? Possibly. I don't know if they were afraid of anything in this movie. In the original Romero movies, the zombies were afraid of fire, but. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, we gotta start talking about ATP and start talking about Parasite Eve and all those great games too. Talk about what the inner workings of the cell, but you know, sometimes in horror movies you got to suspend a little bit of disbelief. You know, you got some guy in a hockey mask who's apparently human who's taking axe hits to the head and gets resurrected by lightning. So you got a guy that's killing people in dreams. So sometimes you gotta suspend a little bit of disbelief. Someone's getting they're getting super technical on me here. But yeah, so I was not as big on like the Romero zombies as a lot of people were, and this movie actually makes reference to them, like, and they expect them to die because of the headshots, and they even talk about, hey kids, you ever see that movie Night of the Living Dead? You know, so there's nice little asides in there that Russo I guess maybe put in there.
Yeah.
So it's even a little bit self-referential in a way, but like I said, it just takes that rule book and throws it out the damn window.
Definitely.
And Supernatural is a much easier way of talking about these movies because you can do whatever you want then, because who's going to be able to refute it, you know? If not, there's always, you know, scientific guys who are going to poo-poo on your idea, especially like the space movies and things like that. So, yeah, man, we have a movie for the ages in this flick, and I would recommend this movie just about everybody. You don't have to be a horror fan. You don't have to be like a gore hound, and you just the standard moviegoer. I think you'd enjoy this. I think if you get past the stigma of it being a zombie movie, if people sat down and just watched it, they'd probably really enjoy this flick.
Oh, definitely, yes. Yeah.
So we'll start. So, get any other points you want to bring up? I know you have you actually made some notes for this show.
I think we went through them all.
We go through them all. Yeah, it's amazing how fast it goes. Well, we've been on for 45 minutes, but
yeah, I think I mentioned everything on it.
Now, as far as the sequels, I haven't seen all of them.
So, part 3, that's just a soft reboot. I don't know why they feel the need to reboot it. Because they do bring Freddie and Frank back in it. I'm not sure. Did they change the names? No, I can't remember. But them two were back in it. Excuse me again, please.
Sure.
2 seconds.
Problem.
Come on.
Oh yeah. So we know we were playing around. This is fun because they'll get super technical on things, and they'll really try to shoot down a movie because they didn't nail like realistic aspects. But come on, man, how realistic are movies for the most part, especially like I said, horror movies and action movies. We have main protagonists who guns down like 500 people in a show. Man, it's not realistic, but you know, it is what it is. And sorry, it's no problem. Hey, man, kids, they like to talk to you when you're doing things. That's what it is. That's what they do. But I would actually appreciate this movie just fine as a standalone movie because I like it. It just leaves the mind open for interpretations. Like the zombie horde's going to take over the world, or is it going to dissipate and it's not going to bother anything? Does humanity have a chance now?
See, I always thought it didn't need a sequel anyway. So, but when you watch Part 3, you know, I enjoy it. I've seen that a few times now, and it's an alright film. Part 2, sorry, and then I've seen Part 3 as well.
How many did they wind up making?
I think there might be 6 or 7.
Oh my God.
And the last ones did not hold up well.
Were they all straight to video affairs?
I think they were, yeah.
I think all of them were after the first one, weren't they?
I think one was actually called Rave to the Grave. So that gives you an idea.
Quality stuff that must have been made in the early 2000s.
I believe there might have been, yeah. Like early 2000s, late 90s.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes people just spend way too much time worrying about realism in a movie, and they can't turn their brain off for just a little while, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I said, you got to suspend disbelief to have a good time. So we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up here. Unless we have anything else to add. But yeah, we heartily endorse Return of the Living Dead for all those viewers out there looking for something a little bit different. If you are tired of the zombie genre as it is and never seen this movie, definitely give this one a check out because there's tons of new ideas that are like, that breathe new life into the zombie genre, and definitely worth a watch, especially if you have it like on Amazon Prime or whatever, or YouTube. You just you can watch it somewhere when you don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
So. Highly recommended.
Plus,
so
you know, it's just a great popcorn film if you just want to chill out and watch something fun and crazy.
Yeah, you don't have to save it for Halloween or Dark Nights like that. You can watch this thing at noonday. Yeah, see, that's the thing. This movie blends a lot of different things together so well, man. It's like you actually care about the protagonists, but you can laugh at the same time at some of their plight. And there is some creepiness factor too, especially with the unstoppable killing machines that these zombies are, right? So, just like I said, it just hits on all cylinders, and it's highly recommended. So, before we get out of here, GP, you got anything coming on the channel here in the near future you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm going to be on Greyman's channel tonight doing Cover Slingers. I think that's about 7 p.m. GMT. Just the normal stuff through the week. Mortal Rams and some more comic hauls.
All right, so
that's all I've got planned for now.
You need to give Graham a hard time. Make fun of him for doing so much walking all the time now. That's half his channel is him walking.
Oh yeah, he's getting out and about now, isn't he?
Yeah. It feels I don't want to see him doing physical activity.
No.
Oh man, Jay, this man has a treasure trove of good films that he's introduced me to. Big Titty Zombie Killer. I don't remember that one, but
I've never heard of that one.
It sounds like a prime candidate for Oscar material there. I like it. Better not be
versus strippers.
Yeah, exactly. Better not be bait and switch though. Yeah. I expect to see a large-chested zombie killer in this movie. So anyway, yeah, we'll go ahead and sign off for now. But GP, thanks again for coming over here on a Saturday afternoon for you.
Thank you very much, man.
Saturday morning for me. Hope everyone in chat enjoyed it. And once again, get out there and watch this movie and let us know what you think in the comments below if you watch this on replay. And sorry about my little bit of echo today. I don't know what's going on. I have the hardest time with live streams, but it is what it is. So we will post another one of these. I don't know if it's going to be in a week. It just depends on how schedules line up, but we'll get the next one figured out. It'll be horror related, so it should be a good time. Oh, it's a Japanese film?
Definitely.
Okay, well, that works. Is there a kami involved too? As in Kami? All right. Okay, yeah, what if is always good because I don't know. Like I said, I don't want realism. It's like I don't want realism in video games. I don't want realism in movies, you know? That's why I go to get away from that stuff. I want to see the impossible happen. So anyway, thanks again for everyone out there in the chat. Get out there and enjoy your Saturday. Do good works and stay tuned for more content. So until then, this is Genome and GP Venom signing out.